Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by saying this. Struggles are not signs of weakness. They are the soil where strength begins to grow. This is not just a feel-good idea. This is a truth grounded in experience, rooted in education, and proven over and over by life itself. We often think of struggles as something to run from, to avoid, to hide. We label them as failure, as shame, as something that sets us apart from those who seem to have it all together. But the reality is this: behind every strong person, behind every successful student, teacher, parent, or leader, there is a story. And within that story, there are moments, sometimes long seasons of deep struggle. Moments where everything felt uncertain, where the way forward was unclear, and where giving up seemed easier than going on. But in those very moments, something powerful begins to happen. That's where strength is born. In the context of education, this is something we see time and again. A student who comes from a broken home, who has every reason to quit but shows up day after day. A teacher who feels burned out, undervalued but still pours their heart into their classroom. A young person who battles anxiety or self-doubt but dares to raise their hand and try. These are not weak people. These are warriors in disguise. Because the truth is, struggling doesn't mean you're failing. Struggling means you're growing. We must change the way we talk about struggle in our classrooms, our homes, and our communities. Too often, we equate success with ease. We reward perfection and penalize effort. We celebrate the final product but ignore the process. But real growth, the kind that lasts, the kind that shapes character and builds resilience, doesn't come from everything going right. It comes from facing what goes wrong and rising anyway. Imagine a seed in the ground. Before it ever becomes something beautiful, it has to push through darkness. It has to navigate pressure, uncertainty, and resistance. It does not bloom instantly. It struggles. But it is because of that struggle that its roots grow strong. The same is true for us. Our struggles give us roots. They teach us to anchor ourselves when the winds of life blow strong. They teach us perseverance, focus, humility, and empathy. There are students sitting in classrooms right now who think they're not good enough because they're struggling to read, to solve a math problem, to fit in socially. There are adults who believe their past mistakes disqualify them from a better future. There are parents who feel like they're failing because life feels hard. But we must remind ourselves and each other, struggle is not the enemy. It is a companion on the journey. It is not the end, it is the beginning. And what grows out of struggle, when we don't give up, is something extraordinary. Strength. Not the kind you measure in physical power, but the kind you measure in how many times you got back up, how many times you kept going, how many times you believed just a little that you were worth the effort. In educational spaces, we need to nurture this mindset. We need to encourage students to embrace the struggle, not run from it. We need to build environments where failure isn't feared, but seen as a stepping stone. We need to talk about the challenges that lead to breakthroughs, not just the breakthroughs themselves. Because when we do, we create not just smarter learners, we create stronger human beings. It's easy to look at someone's strength and forget what it cost them. But if you listen closely, every strength has a backstory. There's the story of the girl who was told she wouldn't make it out of her neighborhood, and now she's the first in her family to graduate. There's the boy who struggled with a learning disability, and now he's a mentor to others just like him. There's the teacher who almost quit, and now inspires generations. Behind each of them, struggle. And because of it, strength. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us stop being ashamed of our struggle. Let us instead recognize it as sacred ground, because what we wrestle with, we grow from, and what we grow from, we can give back to others. That is the full circle of strength, not just rising above, but reaching back to lift someone else. If you are struggling today, I want you to know this. You are not alone. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are growing. And growth is messy, hard, and uncomfortable. But it is also beautiful. It is how we rise. It is how we become. It is how we discover the strength we never knew we had. So don't hide your struggle. Honor it. Learn from it. Use it. Let it be your teacher, your turning point, your foundation. Because the moment you realize that your struggle is not the end, but the beginning of your strength, you rise. Not just for yourself, but for everyone who is still trying to believe that rising is even possible. There is a truth that too many people forget, especially when life gets heavy. Struggles are not signs of weakness. They are the soil where strength begins to grow. That truth has the power to reframe the way we see ourselves, our students, our families, and our futures. And yet, when we're in the midst of a challenge, it can be easy to believe the opposite. It's easy to think that struggling means you're failing. That hardship is a reflection of your inadequacy, or that pain somehow means you're not good enough. But that is not the truth. The truth is, struggling is part of becoming. It's part of evolving. It is where real strength takes root. So often, we look at the end result of someone's success, a diploma, a job title, a polished presentation, and we assume that they got there because they had it easier. But if you were to peel back the layers of their journey, you'd almost always find the same thing: struggle. The quiet nights of doubt. The setbacks no one posted about. The fear they had to face to keep going. What separates those who rise from those who stop is not luck. It's the decision to grow through struggle instead of run from it. We must shift the way we talk about struggle, especially in educational spaces. Struggling is not something to hide or be ashamed of. It's something to embrace and explore. Think about the student who fails a test and immediately thinks, "I'm just not smart enough." Now imagine if instead they were taught to say, "This is a sign I'm stretching. This is where my growth begins." That change in mindset can transform not only their academic life, but their self-worth. And that's where empowerment begins. Our culture often praises perfection. We reward the flawless outcome. But education, real education, is messy. It's made of mistakes. It's built on misunderstandings and corrections. It's full of wrong turns that lead to right ones. A struggling student is not a broken one. A struggling teacher is not an ineffective one. A struggling school is not a failing one. They are all places where strength is waiting to be born if we allow space for it. We've been conditioned to associate struggle with shame. But what if we began to see struggle as sacred? What if we taught our young people that when they are wrestling with a concept, a challenge, or even their emotions, they are actually in the process of becoming stronger thinkers, deeper feelers, and more resilient human beings? It starts with the stories we tell ourselves. If you tell yourself that struggle means you're not enough, you'll quit. But if you tell yourself that struggle is your classroom, your gym, your training ground, you'll stay with it. You'll lean in. And in time, you'll see that the very thing you thought was holding you back was actually preparing you to go further than you imagined. Strength that isn't tested can't be trusted. The muscles of the mind and heart, like the muscles of the body, only grow when they're challenged. If everything came easily, we'd never stretch. We'd never deepen. We'd never discover what we're made of. But when we face something hard and choose to stay, to learn, to keep going, we access a strength that was always inside us, waiting to be awakened. In schools, this message matters more than ever. Students are navigating a world that moves fast, that expects them to know who they are before they've had time to figure it out. And when they struggle academically, socially, emotionally, we must meet them, not with judgment, but with compassion and encouragement. We must say, yes, this is hard, and yes, you are strong enough to get through it. because every time a young person gets through something difficult, they don't just pass a test, they gain a piece of themselves. A piece they'll carry into every challenge that comes next. But this message isn't just for students. It's for all of us. It's for the parent working 3 jobs and still showing up to help with homework. It's for the teacher who feels burned out but keeps finding ways to connect. It's for the leader trying to guide others while carrying their own doubts. Struggles are everywhere, but so is the potential for strength. We don't grow when things are easy. We grow when we're tested, when we fall and have to get back up, when we question ourselves and find a deeper truth. And the more we embrace struggle as part of the process, the less we'll fear it. The more we'll trust it. The more we'll rise because of it. True strength is forged through adversity, not in its absence. That may not be what we want to hear in the middle of hardship, but it is what we need to hear. Because far too often, we wait for life to get easier before we believe we can be stronger. We think that peace will come when the chaos stops. That confidence will arrive when the fear is gone, or that we'll become resilient when the storms pass. But the truth is, resilience is not built on calm waters. It is built in the storm. Adversity is not a detour from the journey. It is part of the path. It shapes us in ways comfort never could. It introduces us to parts of ourselves we might otherwise never meet, the part that endures when everything falls apart, the part that keeps learning even when the grades don't reflect it, the part that keeps showing up even when the world tells you to sit down. That's where strength is born, not in ease, but in resistance. Think of a blade. Before it becomes sharp, it must be placed in fire. It must be hammered, refined, and tested. It is the pressure and the heat that transform it from something ordinary into something useful. We are no different. When life applies pressure through failure, loss, rejection, or setbacks, it is not trying to break us. It's inviting us to break through. In educational environments, we often focus on success, but we rarely celebrate what it took to get there. We look at the student who aces the exam and forget the nights they spent studying despite distractions at home. We admire the graduate walking across the stage, but don't always see the jobs they held, the battles they faced, the fear they overcame just to make it there. When we only highlight the finish line, we miss the most meaningful part of the story of the climb. Strength doesn't arrive fully formed. It's built one hard moment at a time. One missed opportunity followed by a second try. One no that pushes us to find a better yes. One obstacle that reveals just how far we're willing to go. Adversity is not the enemy. It is the classroom. It's where lessons become lived experience. It's where theory meets reality. And it's where transformation happens. This is why we must teach our young people and remind ourselves that struggle is not a stop sign. It's a signal to dig deeper. When a student is discouraged because the work is hard, let's not tell them to be less frustrated. Let's tell them the frustration is evidence that growth is happening, that they are not falling behind. They are learning how to move forward differently. When an educator feels like they're failing because their students are struggling, remind them that the presence of challenge does not mean the absence of progress. So many of us carry the false belief that strength means never falling apart. That strong people don't cry, don't falter, don't get tired. But real strength, the kind that lasts, is the ability to bend without breaking, to feel the full weight of life, and still get back up. It's not about avoiding difficulty. It's about choosing who you become because of it. There's a young man who lost both his parents before finishing high school. And yet he showed up every day, graduated with honors, and now mentors other students. There's a woman who failed her college entrance exam 3 times and is now pursuing her PhD. Not because she had no adversity, but because she had the grit to keep going through it. This is what forged their strength, not talent alone, but perseverance through pain. And that kind of strength isn't just individual, it's contagious. When we rise through adversity, We don't rise alone. We lift others with us. We show people what's possible. We break cycles, shift narratives, and become living proof that growth is still possible, even in the darkest places. Adversity is not fair. It never is. Some people face more than others. Some are born into it, some encounter it along the way, and some are blindsided by it when they least expect it. But regardless of where it comes from, adversity always offers us a choice: to stay stuck or to rise, to shut down or to evolve, to remain bitter or to turn pain into purpose. And it's not a one-time decision. Rising through adversity is a choice we make daily. It's choosing to study again after failing a test. It's returning to class after a tough week at home. It's applying for another opportunity after rejection. These small, quiet choices are the building blocks of strength. Not flashy, not loud, but powerful. Education is not just about books, exams, or degrees. Education is a bridge, a powerful one that carries us from where we are to where we have the potential to be. It is the bridge that takes our pain, our struggles, our hardships, and slowly, patiently, transforms them into purpose. This is not just about academic learning. It's about life learning. Because when you truly understand the value of education, you begin to see how it shapes more than minds. It shapes lives. It heals, it uplifts, and it rebuilds. Many of us carry wounds, some visible, many not. And for too long, we've been told to leave those wounds at the door when we enter a classroom or a learning space. But the truth is, pain walks in with every student, every teacher, every parent, and instead of ignoring it, what if we used education to meet that pain with purpose? What if we created spaces where knowledge didn't just inform, but transformed? When a child who has been told they're not smart enough finally learns to read with confidence, they are not just learning a skill, they are rewriting the story they were told about their worth. When a teenager who's experienced trauma finds refuge in writing or in science or in music, they are not just earning credits, they are building a life that has meaning beyond what they've survived. That is the bridge I'm talking about. That is the power of education. There's something extraordinary that happens when pain meets learning. It creates fuel. It creates focus. It creates resilience. I have seen students from the most difficult circumstances rise into leadership, not in spite of their past, but because education gave them the language, the tools, and the confidence to turn that past into purpose. The classroom became their mirror and their map, a mirror that reflected their potential, and a map that showed them how to reach it. But that only happens when we stop seeing education as something that lives on a page and start seeing it as something that lives in the heart. You can teach formulas and facts, but when you connect that teaching to someone's story, to their truth, to what they've been through, something changes. Learning stops being something they're forced to do and becomes something they want to do. Because it's not just about passing a test. It's about reclaiming their power. And this doesn't only apply to students. Educators, too, carry stories. Many teachers have walked through their own pain, loss, poverty, prejudice, and now stand before classrooms, not because their journey was easy, but because education helped them find meaning in what they endured. They are building bridges for others, one lesson at a time, because someone once built a bridge for them. Education becomes most powerful when we allow it to be personal, when we connect it to purpose, when we say, yes, you've struggled. Yes, you've been hurt. But here's how learning can help you heal. Here's how understanding history can help you rewrite your future. Here's how math can build your confidence. Here's how science can help you see possibility. Here's how art can give you voice. That's not just curriculum. That's transformation. Too many people are walking through life thinking their pain disqualifies them. That because they had a rough start, they'll never catch up. But what if we told them the truth? That pain can be powerful, that their experience matters, that their scars are not marks of failure, but evidence that they're still here and still capable of building something beautiful. Education is what makes that shift possible. It's what gives language to our struggle and strategy to our dreams. I think of the young girl who grew up in a home where addiction was present. She could have let that story define her. Instead, she used it as a stepping stone. She studied psychology, earned a degree, and now works in communities helping children who are growing up just like she did. That is, education transforming pain into purpose. That is what it means to rise above. This is why it's not enough to push for education in terms of access alone. We must also focus on connection. We must make education a space where people feel seen, heard, and valued, where their story matters, where they understand that learning isn't separate from who they are, it's how they become who they're meant to be. Let's not underestimate the impact of one teacher who believes in a struggling student, one mentor who says, "Your past does not define your future," one class that opens up a new way of thinking, one book that sparks a question, one essay that becomes a breakthrough. These are the moments that build the bridge, quietly, consistently, one step at a time. Life is not a single chapter. It is not a fixed script. And no matter what you've been through, no matter what's been said about you, done to you, or what you've even believed about yourself, every challenge, every moment of difficulty, every broken place holds within it a sacred invitation. The invitation to write a new story. This is the part no one tells you when you're going through hard times, when you've lost your way, when a door closes, or when failure wraps itself around your self-worth. But let me say it now, loud and clear, your current chapter does not define your entire book. You may be hurting, confused, uncertain, but that doesn't mean your story is over. It means your next chapter is waiting for you to pick up the pen. It's easy to feel stuck in a narrative that was handed to us by circumstance, poverty, trauma, loss, rejection. And when life keeps repeating those lines over and over again, we start to believe that's all there is. But the truth is, the pen has always been within reach. We may not control what happened to us, but we do get to decide what we do with it. In classrooms, in communities, in families, there are people walking around every day feeling like their story has already been decided, like they were born into a script they can't change. But we are not bound to our past. We are not trapped by our struggle. We are authors of our lives, and every challenge we face gives us fresh ink, new depth, and the courage to begin a new chapter. Think about that student who's been labeled as a troublemaker. Maybe they've been suspended more times than they've been praised. Maybe they walk into school carrying more pain than books. It's easy to assume they're just another statistic. But what if we paused and asked, what story are you carrying? And what story do you want to write? That one question could be the beginning of their transformation. Because sometimes all someone needs is permission to believe that change is possible. Writing a new story doesn't mean forgetting the past. It means using it. It means saying, yes, this happened. Yes, it hurt. But this is not where it ends. It's about learning the lesson, finding the strength, and choosing how you want to move forward. That choice, that bold act of rewriting your own narrative, is one of the most powerful things a person can do. I remember hearing a story about a young man who dropped out of high school after being told he'd never make it. He spent years believing he wasn't smart enough, good enough, or worthy enough. But one day he decided to challenge that belief. He enrolled in adult education classes. It was hard. He failed more times than he passed. But he kept going. He graduated. He started mentoring other young men like him. He's now a published author, writing not just books but his life. That challenge he faced didn't end him. It began him. It helped him discover a new version of himself he didn't even know existed. That's what challenges do when we allow them. They crack us open. They show us the layers beneath the surface, and they push us to become more than we ever imagined. But we have to be willing to shift the story. We have to believe that we are more than what we've been through. This message is vital for educators, for parents, and especially for the youth. If we don't teach people how to rewrite their narratives, they will live out the ones they've inherited, even when those stories are filled with limitation, shame, and fear. We must speak life into others. We must remind them, you are not your mistake. You are not your diagnosis. You are not the number on a report card or the silence in your home. You are the author, and you get to write again. Every challenge holds the possibility of a pivot, a new direction, a deeper understanding, a new purpose. But we have to stop seeing challenges as endings and start seeing them as beginnings. A closed door might just be the nudge we need to open a better one. A failure might be the spark that fuels our finest work. A loss might be the pain that shapes our most meaningful contribution. Let's teach our young people how to own their voice, how to reclaim their narrative, how to speak new words over their life, words of strength, of possibility, of resilience. Because when someone learns to write their own story, they learn to live with intention. They stop waiting for permission. They stop shrinking. They rise. As we stand together at this moment, let us remember that rising above is not just a phrase, it's a call to awaken the strength already within us, a call to recognize that our struggles are not the end of the story, but the soil from which our greatness can grow. We've explored how inner strength is built not in ease, but in resistance. We've seen that adversity is not a punishment. It is a teacher. We've witnessed how education becomes the bridge between pain and purpose, and we've learned that every challenge we face is simply an invitation to write a new story. You may be walking through hardship today. You may have memories that haunt you, dreams that feel distant, or fears that try to convince you to stay small. But I urge you, don't stop here. Don't settle. Don't let the weight of what was keep you from the wonder of what can be. You have the right to rise. You have the power to choose growth, healing, and transformation. To the students, keep learning not just from textbooks, but from your life. Use every challenge as a stepping stone. To the educators, never underestimate your influence. You are not just teaching lessons, you are helping others rewrite their lives. And to every soul in this room, whatever your past has been, know this: your future is still unwritten, and you hold the pen. This journey from struggle to strength is not a straight line. It is filled with detours, doubts, and moments of darkness. But if you stay the course, if you trust your worth, and if you lean into your resilience, you will rise not only for yourself, but for everyone watching you, everyone walking behind you, everyone who needs to believe it's possible. So, rise with purpose, rise with courage, rise with hope, because your life, your beautifully imperfect, powerful, and unique life, is the greatest story you'll ever get to tell. Thank you.